So, what is it to have a Zen mind or a witnessing mind, and how does using that Zen mind help us in in our process and in our development?
Well, one of the most interesting bodies of work around human consciousness and the development of self is the work that's been done around meditation. That's one of the most, I think, some of the most profound discovery, if not the most. I'm gonna, and this is probably it's possibly a controversial statement, but I would say probably the most important discoveries we've ever made have come through witness state or self-observation via the process of meditation. Because one could argue, well, what about the discovery of vaccines? What about the discovery of technology? It's really hard, to debate how important those are to humanity. I would suggest that the difference is they're not necessary for people to be happy.
Okay.
They're only necessary for human beings to be comfortable. They're only necessary for longevity. If and again, I don't even know if they're necessary. It might even be a strong statement to say they're necessary for survival. They are tools for survival, but we've been surviving for a very, very, very long time before technology, since technology is so incredibly new. We were, in fact, surviving without it for a very long time. And apparently we were thriving and we were having a good time because, there's plenty of evidence, historical evidence, to suggest that, pre-technology civilizations that had what we would now consider very basic, very rudimentary systems, such as water that we were able to channel down, or some type of drainage, or even a sewage type system of some nature. We had learned to produce food, for an entire city. So some of these really nice pieces of technological discovery, they definitely allowed us to be more comfortable, and it definitely appears that people were thriving, and having a good time, and happy. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that civilizations were genuinely thriving and enjoying themselves before we figured out how to develop a computer and an iPhone. So if you think about it, it's not that technology is really necessary. That's really I don't even know if you could. I'm not even sure if anybody would want to even take that on as a debate. Is it necessary? It is, again, it is in service to certain things that we care about.
Or the jobs or whatever.
Absolutely. But the discoveries that we have made through meditation in regard to who we are and what's important and what what actually makes us tick, and how the mind understands consciousness, and how the mind exists, and how we interpret reality. These discoveries have a huge impact on how we structure our realities, our lives, our they help us mold and construct the framework that is our life. Unless you're caught, and many people are, unless you're caught in the matrix of illusion, where you believe that the most important, the most significant things are these temporary,
Yeah.
possessions and temporary comforts. But if you understand that the discovery of personal happiness and joy is made through, is made through sitting and actually witnessing the mind, and it's again, I don't want to call it. There's no value judgment. I don't want to call it a good or a bad thing, because a lot of people, my mind is, it's look how bad, man, I have a lot of thoughts. It's so bad. It's not a good or bad thing. It is the product of the mind's general function. In other words, the mind is made to create meaning to life. It's made to interpret. And I don't mean this esoterically. I mean that the
function,
organ that is of the brain, the organ that is the brain, is designed to take in information through the senses, interpret it, give it meaning, understand it. It's a very straightforward process, and so it's constantly busy with imagery and replay.
Memories.
So because it's always remembering or imagining or observing, and so it's constantly busy, basically just taking in reality, because that's its job. So to say that you're disturbed by it, it would be the same as saying you're disturbed by the fact that the heart beats regularly.
Yeah.
So to be disturbed by the mind being busy, no. The mind is simply doing what the mind does. If you would put yourself in a position where you could allow the mind to rest and settle, you'll find that eventually the mind will basically, like a leaf sort of falling, it will come to rest.
Right.
It will not indefinitely be in the process of thinking.
Yeah.
It will always be observing. It will always be in witness state. But it will not always be frantic. It will not always be jumping around. It will not always feel uncontrollable. It will not always feel that, look, your thoughts are always going to be random. And what I mean by that is, right now, you can't tell me the next thought you're going to have. You're just going to have it.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me what it's going to be.
Right.
And so people that are like, I have complete control of my mind. I'm like, no, you can never have complete control of your mind, because that suggests that you can tell me your next thought.
Yeah.
The mind can be in witness state, which means it's not necessarily thinking, but it is rather observing. And that's what Zen mind is. It's getting your mind to sit and observe in exchange for being in thought, which is, to be in thought is to be in memory or to be in imagination. It's not to witness, because remember, there are three states that the mind can occupy: past, present, or future. So if you're in the past, you're thinking and remembering.
Yeah.
If you're in the future, you're imagining and thinking. If you're in the moment, it's possible for you to simply be observing and witnessing. Yeah. It is very difficult, if not practically impossible, for a person, if they work on it, to learn to anchor to the moment, which the beauty of the brain is, and I'm speaking purely from the perspective of science right now, neurologically speaking, not mystically or, there's no voodoo behind this statement. your brain cannot occupy thought and observation at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so and that's beautiful, and in nature, that's probably nature's greatest gift. If and I'm not suggesting nature consciously gifted,
Yeah.
but if there's anything that through natural selection we were able to, retain, develop and retain, is the ability for the brain, if it needs to witness something, it's not going to think about it.
Yeah.
It's just going to witness it,
Yeah.
and that's all about survival. It's all about staying alive. You're not going to be thinking while you're running from the tiger.
Right.
So the brain shuts off thought when it needs to go into pure witness state.
Yeah.
And that beautiful mechanism is what meditation actually is. It's you occupying that state on purpose. It's you intentionally going into a state of self-observation, stillness, so that you can get the mind to develop a familiarity
Yeah.
with that state,
Yeah.
and a comfort in that state, and also like a muscle, the ability to sort of sustain that state. So nobody can sustain the state of meditation indefinitely,
No,
of
of
pure conscious isness, nowness, indefinitely, but you can sustain it for extended periods of time. And there is, in fact, evidence of people going into deep states of meditation for extended periods of time, such as 2 months, 3 months, like where they literally don't eat, they sit,
Right. Yeah.
and just the body just shuts down in a particular way, and they go into a state of self-observation.
Yeah.
And so it is possible for you to train the mind to hold a witness state for incredibly long periods of time. It's like holding your breath. Because think about it. The average person cannot hold their breath more than 30 seconds. Then it moves into about a minute, and then it starts to become more training that gets you to 2 minutes, that gets you to 3 minutes, that gets you to 5 minutes, that gets you to what may be the world record. I don't know this, don't quote me, but it could be as much as possibly 10 minutes
Yeah.
for a person to hold their breath, but definitely not beyond that.
Yeah.
But that might as well be an eternity for a person who's holding their breath for 30 seconds. And it is the equivalent. If you can sit in Zen state for 30 minutes, but I can do it for 3 days.
Yeah.
For you, that might as well be holding your breath for 5 minutes,
Right,
as
exactly.
opposed to 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's good
If I
analogy.
can sit in meditation for 30 days straight, and you can only do it for 30 minutes, it might as well be the equivalent of me holding my breath, again, for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So understanding that it is very possible to hold, to hold the state of witness, pure isness, nowness, not wasness, not what will be-ness, but isness. It is something that you learn to do through practice, but it is completely human to do it. It is not some alien, some foreign, unique thing we do. It is just something that we are completely capable of doing that we rarely do, because we, and you say the mind, but we, whatever however you want to phrase it, we like to be doing and remembering and imagining more than we like to be witnessing. Stillness isn't, for most people, until they break free of this idea, stillness isn't as satisfying. It isn't as rewarding for the serotonin. You don't get those You don't get those hits.
It's not, so it's like a chemical thing. Like,
Correct.
Like why? Okay.
Correct. You don't get the brain chemistry, pleasure receptor gameplay you do with sitting and stillness. You get a different. What you do is you create a different brain chemistry.
Right.
So it's not as it's the difference between eating sugar and like getting that immediate like woo, that great fix of like really concentrated sugar, and you get that immediate you get that high, and then you get that dump.
Right.
Whereas if you eat something like a fruit, something very natural, something that might be very low in sugar, there might be something that, in other words, when your palate is tuned to not needing, what this is plenty.
Yeah.
What you start to realize is the satisfaction you get from that is so much greater, and also the side effects are so completely different. But to argue that you don't get pleasure from being in the past and in the future would be a lie. You do get pleasure from it. You get a lot of pleasure.
Just temporary.
But it's temporary. But you get a lot of visceral, physical pleasure from being in past and present and being in like activity, mental activity. And you get excited, or you get loved, or you get, whatever is occurring. But sitting, you get peace.
Yeah.
And you get stillness.
Yeah.
And you get equanimity. And you get basically harmony and balance.
Yeah.
And that is not as exciting as those other. It'd be like this. What's more exciting? Orgasm or non-orgasm?
Yeah, obviously.
Right? So orgasm is more exciting. So it takes great discipline in the tantric practice not to orgasm, so that you can just experience this middle ground that is not excitement to its peak, but is not nothingness either. There is pleasure.
Yeah.
Most people want to get to the excitement, including myself. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that who doesn't love to orgasm.
Yeah, of course.
So to suggest that we don't all enjoy the excitement of life, whether it's sexual, artistic, productivity, accomplishment, we all do, and it's normal. But it also becomes an addiction, and it becomes our master. Pleasure becomes our master very quickly. Meditation is a place that you go to become free from that master, where you learn to lessen, even completely free yourself from the attachment to the master, to the pleasure, to the experience. So Zen mind, in essence, is simply a term we use from the Zen practice to describe being completely in the now, in witness state.
Yeah.
And it is completely accessible and masterable by any human being. It simply takes daily practice. It requires intention, and it requires dedication, and the fruit of it is your ability to concentrate for longer periods of time, to hold space to solve problems for longer periods of time. Because the longer I can sit with something and hold space and observe and just witness, the more intelligent ultimately I really am. My intelligence is the result of my use of my intellect. No one's just intelligent.
Right, yeah.
It's intelligence is a description of something being done. You're applying your intellect. which means you're applying logic, reason through critical thought.
Yeah.
It's not simply, wow, what an intelligent person, because this person just is. There's an intelligence because of what this person does.
Right.
How, loving, it's like saying a person's very loving. Well, loving is an action. It's an action. It's a thing that is done.
Mm-hmm.
So, loving someone is being in action.
Mm-hmm.
Intelligence is something that is in action.
Mm-hmm.
So, Zen state, meditation, is the practice of being in action of concentration.
Yeah, just concentration.
Just concentrating on being present, listening.
Yeah.
Just listen. Close your eyes and sit and simply listen. And when your mind wanders, and it will, it wanders into thought, which of course is either thought of the past or thought of the future,
Mm-hmm.
you simply come back to listening,
Mm-hmm.
which is absolutely right now, and it brings you back to witness state. And the longer you can occupy that state, the longer you can stay with a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The longer you can stay with a moment. If you're listening for someone, if you're holding space as a listener, the longer you can just stay with that and hold space for them.
Yeah.
The longer you can stay with something, if you're working with movement, the longer you can stay with it. And that ultimately is Zen mind or witness state.